You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So my husband annoys me, when he does a few things. One is we're going to walk the dog, we're going out for a walk, and I'm like, I need my jacket. He's like, you don't need your jacket. It's not cold outside. And he's like in a t-shirt. And I go, I need my jacket. And then I go outside, it's like 62 or it's 58 degrees. And he's fine. He's warm. I'm like, I need my jacket. Also, gosh, there's something else he does that annoys me there's a few things he does. Oh yeah. He doesn't gain weight like I do. I mean, why? Well, okay. We think the reason why, men don't seem to gain weight as quickly as women do, or they don't feel as cold as women do, is because their resting metabolic rate. I think their resting metabolic rate is about 23% higher. They metabolize more, which is why they can eat more and not gain as much weight, and they can eat as much fattening food as they like. They don't. They aren't supposed to, but they seem to look like that. But it's interesting. The subject has come up because another study has said, it's the resting metabolic rate why men are warmer than women. I think there's also a little bit more, there's some other aspects to it. So, like, I notice when I'm cold, I got some muscle, but it's mostly my arms. My chest, warm. Well, because I got the boobies. The boobies are very, very protective. I mean, my chest never really gets cold, but my arms and legs and nose and ear get cold. So one is if we have less muscle, or we have, fat conducts heat more than muscle, but muscle can insulate heat more. So if we have less muscle, and I got, some biceps and some triceps, but not like hubby does. So I think the muscle mass is also a big part of that. I also think that, I am not as hairy. I'm hairy, but not as hairy as my husband. Now, if I let the unibrow grow, I'm nice and warm here. When I make two eyebrows, I notice I do get a little cold. Whereas, men, they'll keep the hair on their, unless they're swimmers, of course, but they'll keep their hair on their arms and legs and all that. And so that kind of keeps them warm. Another thing is I think the estrogen and progesterone can play a role. One thing about women is our bodies are designed to protect the baby. And so we shunt blood a lot more aggressively than I think men might, because our job is to keep the fetus alive. Our job is to make sure that if we're carrying a baby, that stays warm. And so I think we're quicker to vasoconstrict and have less blood flow to our fingertips and nose and ears to shunt the blood to, warm up the central core. But one thing that I think a lot of studies aren't touching upon is the mommy instinct. Nobody ever talks about this, and this is huge. All right. I might not necessarily feel cold, but I have to detect it for my babies. Now, I know my babies are now grown-up men, but I think the mommy instinct is a lot more, because it's interesting. So, like, we'll be outside, and I'll tell my husband it's getting cold. What the hell are you talking about? And then he'll feel the wind gust, and then he'll be like, oh, you know what? I think the temperatures are dropping. I'm like, I just said that, right? Annoying thing number 3. I love my husband, but just come on, man, really. Maybe it's because our maternal instinct has to be aware, our young is out there, it's in the cold. We need to pick up on temperature drops so we have time as early as possible. So we have time to get the babies and get them out of whatever they're doing. The lake, river, whatever they were doing during caveman days, and get them to an area where we dry them off and keep them warm. And I wonder if that's also it. And maybe also for our milk production or for some of the other things that we need as women, for the babies. Because it's really interesting. It's really all about the babies. And I don't mind that, but I notice with my body, I mean, it was like of the most amazing. I had good boobies, I really did. Then after I was done breastfeeding, and I remember my body and I had a talk. My body's like, "You're gonna have any more kids?" And like an idiot, I told my body no. Okay, well then after that, the boobie, I mean, it was just the body's like, "Well, all right, we're closing up shop. She doesn't need to attract any more men. The boobies don't have to be above the waist. Let's just," and I just started to completely age. And I'm like, "Okay, no, I might have one more baby. No. But then it was too late. So I really do think that we have now. Interestingly, people always say, and I brought this up during COVID. People say, "Well, men are babies when it comes to colds and getting sick." I don't think they're babies. I don't. I think men get hit harder with a cold than we women do. I know a lot of people disagree with me. They just think that men are whiny. They're not. I really do, because I see my husband when he gets sick with something. I mean, I could still work. I could still do whatever, get him soup. But I mean, he's down for the count. And I think we saw that with COVID, where when the cytokine storm came, when COVID would cause inflammation in the lungs and the lungs would fill up with fluid, we saw more men get that than women. And I think it's because men have maybe a more exaggerated response to illness, where when it hits them hard, it hits them fast, and then they'll come out of it. Whereas for me, I could have that cough or whatever just lagging on for weeks, but I'm functioning. I'm able to still function. And I wonder if that's all a part of that maternal makeup, where we mommies still have to feed the kids, we still have to watch the kids. And I understand in society today that's different, but if you go back to caveman days and how nature designed us, we had to still function if we were sick. Maybe there'd be another wet nurse or somebody in the village who would help you out. But for the most part, you had to take care of babies. And this is another reason why I think women seem to have less incidences of cancer and heart disease, etc. So it's a fascinating topic that they're talking about now, about how women are colder than men. But if we're not hairy, we don't have as much muscle, our estrogen and progesterone, our vasoconstriction, our resting metabolic rate, also our surface area. Many of us, if we're smaller than the average men, we have less heat, more to dissipate. So it could be a surface area thing. I don't know, but I think it's just because, we women can pick up on it quicker. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So the Home Alone mom and the Poo-Poo's Creek, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the show, SCHITT Creek. I just, now with AI, anything can happen to your show if they hear the wrong word. Catherine O'Hara, fabulous actress, a huge fan of her talent, had passed on February 9th. We're being, not on February 9th. She passed last week. However, we are being told that not only did she have dextrocardia, which we spoke about, where your heart is leaning more towards the right, and you might have situs inversus, where you have all your body parts shifted, whereas rather than the appendix being on the right, the appendix is on the left, your liver is on the left, your stomach is on the right. Situs inversus is where you're inverted, your organs were distributed in a different fashion. We never thought that was necessarily the cause of her death. However, now the death certificate says she died from a pulmonary embolism. That's rough, and that's very acute. I think only a third of people, I think a third of people die before they even get diagnosed with the pulmonary embolism. It's an embolism is either air, a clot, a foreign body, something that blocks, embolizes, moves to the lung, blocks flow to the artery to the lung that's supposed to oxygenate blood, and you unfortunately can immediately die. It's a medical emergency. Catherine O'Hara was only 71 years old, and from what we understand, died within hours of the onset of symptoms. They couldn't save her. Now, we're also being told that she had rectal cancer as well. She looked very frail and gaunt. So apparently she had rectal cancer, we're being told. And so cancer can put us at risk of clots and could put us at risk of embolisms. We also see people get, sadly, pulmonary embolism when they go overseas or to another country to get certain cosmetic surgery procedures. You'll hear of these young women dying of embolisms, and you're like, what's happening to them? What's going on? Well, we think that if the procedures aren't properly being done, that you could get a ball of air or trapped air, and that air will move. And air has surface area and it has volume. And even if it's light, like air, you could have an air bubble that blocks blood flow. And so we sometimes see with these poorly done liposuctions or other procedures or fillers being injected or these butt lifts, where if air gets trapped or if the silicone or whatever they're using to inject moves, it can unfortunately move up the bloodstream into the venous system. And then the venous system, so you know how your blood works is your heart takes oxygenated blood and it pumps it through the arteries, and the arteries take blood to the tissues. So you have your left ventricle, which is one of the most important ventricles of the heart. That's why we see these sudden heart attacks in people with the left anterior descending artery blockage, because unfortunately if blood flow to that part of the heart gets blocked, that ventricle can't beat, then it can't send blood to the rest of the body, and people can unfortunately go through cardiac arrest or die. And so blood from the left ventricle gets pumped through the aorta to the body. Then the blood goes through all the tissues. The tissues take the oxygen from the hemoglobin and be able to use the oxygen that it needs. Then the carbon dioxide, the byproduct of our tissues using oxygen, has to go somewhere, right? So it has to eventually go to the lungs so we can breathe it out. But our deoxygenated blood, and there's still oxygen in it. That's why with CPR, we tell you to keep pumping their heart, keep doing chest compressions, because there's still oxygen, even in deoxygenated blood. But the blood goes from a very nice bright red to a darker red, or, more bluish, purplish hue. That blood eventually goes from your blood goes through the artery, then the arterioles and the capillaries. And then it goes to the venules, then the veins. And the veins start to move back and then dump into the inferior vena cava. That then dumps into the right atrium, the top part of the heart on the right. Then the right ventricle gets the blood and pumps it into the lungs. So then the lungs can then oxygenate it. The lungs take the blood, add oxygen to it, get rid of the carbon dioxide through your exhalation. Then it dumps the blood into the left atrium, which then goes to the left ventricle, and then the ventricle can pump it out throughout the body. That's the cycle of the blood. And so when your body has things that happen to it, everything is shunted to the venules and then the veins. Because people say, okay, so an embolism is going to cause a stroke. Embolisms can cause strokes, but you hear more commonly pulmonary embolism because it's going to hit the lungs first if there's an embolism, because it goes through the vein. So then how do people get strokes? Well, with strokes, it's lack of blood flow. There's two different types. You got your ischemic stroke, two main types. You got your ischemic stroke, and then you have your hemorrhagic stroke. The most common is the ischemic stroke. With the stroke, it's like a heart attack to the brain. Less blood flow to the brain. That could be because you have artery clogging. It could be because something is impeding blood flow, like a mass or tumor. Or it could be that your arteries, such as your carotid arteries, have plaquing on it. That breaks off and then moves up into the brain. Why? Because the blood is going to the tissues. And so if there's plaques and things in the arteries, that can then sadly go to the brain, stop blood flow, cause an ischemic or thrombotic stroke. Hemorrhagic stroke is where you have a bleed, a blood vessel burst, you have head trauma, cancer. We actually think that FDR, actually there's been some debate on whether he had an ischemic stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke, or if it was melanoma above his left eye. It could have been all three because cancer can cause both. But they believe FDR had a hemorrhagic stroke, but now we're thinking it could be related to the melanoma that went to the brain that caused the bleeding, sadly. So if you have an embolism, more oftentimes than not, it'll go to the pulmonary artery. Now, some of you say, whoa, pulmonary artery, you said veins. Remember, artery is going to something. So your arteries bring blood to the tissues. Your pulmonary artery is bringing your deoxygenated blood to the lungs. It's still called a pulmonary artery. The pulmonary vein brings the blood back into the heart to then get pumped out through arteries. Trust me, when I was a medical student, I was like, what? Wait, let me write this down. So I understand it's confusing. All you all need to know is just don't get a pulmonary embolism. How do people get this? Well, if you're prone to blood clots, that can happen. If you have heart disease, if you have cancer, she apparently had rectal cancer, surgery, clotting disorders. We've even seen pulmonary embolism with COVID-19. I get really nervous when I'm on a long trip or a red eye. I try to get up and move around a lot because I want to keep the blood going. I feel like if I'm sedentary, and I think we are seeing more blood clots because people have been sitting for work. After COVID, people have been working remotely. When you work in an office, even if you're on a computer, you're still, I'm going to go to the break room. I'm going to go potty. I'm going to go see, John and receiving and accounts receivable, and you move around. But when you're home and you're just sitting there binging on Netflix, or you're binging watching or working on your computer, or you're doing your video games. I mean, we've had young people form blood clots. It's really, really scary stuff. So you have to keep moving. I had a patient whose gynecologist gave her birth control, not a very heavy birth control, but apparently she had an underlying clotting disorder that caused her to end up forming multiple blood clots. And I have been advocating that maybe we all need to be screened for clotting disorders before we start birth control. That never got done because insurance doesn't want to pay for it. But the average woman is started on birth control without getting that testing to see if they're genetically prone to blood clots. And then we see these women die of blood clots, and you're like, why didn't anybody test? Well, because they don't screen for that. That's not a USPSTF recommendation. It's just not something that any insurance company wants to pay for. But I got to tell you, if you don't know if you're prone to blood clots and there's blood clots in the family, before you take any estrogen product, whether it's birth control, whether it's menopausal, whether it's transgender treatment, you want to know if you have a clotting disorder. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So my Spanish is minimal. I could speak medical Spanish because I took 5 years in school of Spanish, but I would not consider myself completely fluent. I have difficulty listening to a song and understanding every single word. I could speak to patients and I could perform medical exams in Spanish and be able to give them instructions, etc., perform informed consent. But when it comes to like listening to Bad Bunny and understanding everything he said, I struggled. And, I picked up on Novio and Amor and, I picked up on the love part and but did I understand everything he said? No, I didn't. And I know that was a big part of people's criticism of the Bad Bunny show. I had said there was a lot more production value to that show than I've seen with other halftime shows. And I think it was Michael Jackson's halftime show, where his halftime show caught more viewers than the actual Super Bowl. I mean, the halftime show was so popular, Michael Jackson's halftime show. But then again, even though football was always big, football has really gotten big. I mean, football used to be more about men watching. I've always liked football, and it was hard to find a girlfriend who wanted to watch football with me. It would only be the guys that would. And now, I mean, women love football. Everybody's into football. So we do have larger audiences. But I have to admit, the last few halftime shows, So when I saw Bad Bunny's show and there was dancing and there was Pedro Pascal and Ricky Martin and Lady Gaga, and I was like, nobody showed their breast. Yeah, you saw a lot of twerking and tushies, but there was no nudity, and I didn't pick up on a lot. I mean, I know there were political undertones, with the electricity poles and things like that, but I superficially, I thought it looked like it was more of a Puerto Rican pride. And so it wasn't, my least favorite halftime show. However, I was picking up on some things in the lyrics that I couldn't necessarily verify. And I was wondering if that was going to come up. Well, it looks like it has come up. And apparently people are very, very concerned that there's FCC rules as it pertains to cussing and genitalia. And we're being told that the lyrics translated from what Bad Bunny sang did have many explicit references. Now, I'm not direct translating, but apparently there was the Titi mi pregunto. Talks about casual dating, and I think he brought up his baby gravy and his sexual partners. I mean, that's not really, Super Bowl friendly. I guess there's a part that says a Dominican who was a fresh hottie, the one from Barcelona that came by plane and says that my blank is fire. And he's talking to his genitalia. Again, I'm surprised that was, why is that in a Super Bowl song? And I'm not sitting there trying to insult and criticize. I mean, this is what Bad Bunny does. His music is very suggestive and sexually explicit. I'm more confused why the NFL thought that this was appropriate for a halftime show. But and again, it was all in Spanish, so maybe nobody thought that anybody would know. Let me see. There was also, I think, Safaera. That has to do with his genitalia being chased, and then sex and a lot of cuss words, and the F word, things like that. You can't say that on TV in English. So now the question is if it's in Spanish, are you allowed to cuss? There's a really good taco place we have in Las Vegas called Pinches Tacos. Now, I'm only going to say that once because I don't want to get in trouble. But if you know what that translates into, it's a common chain, but that's a cuss word. And so, having Latinos in the family, I don't want these stereotypes to be extended to individuals of Latino, of culture, where it's all about the, bad words and they're Catholic. That doesn't represent their culture. But Bad Bunny, we're like, okay, listen, I like Puerto Ricans. I got Puerto Ricans in the family. This is Puerto Rican pride. It's a beautiful thing, but why the dirty words? Why the sexual context? I think something about licking, and there was a lot of puppy, keep going, puppy. There was a lot of again, sexual undertones, and so it's a concern. So where what's the NFL doing? What are they trying to do? And I take this very seriously because I go to the NFL and I go to football to avoid politics, to avoid sex and smut and things like that. It's football. Well, listen, I love Game of Thrones, but it's really hard to get through a Game of Thrones without there being some sort of sex or incest or whatever. And I get that. When you watch Game of Thrones, you're expecting that. You're expecting with a lot of movies, there's going to be a lot of sex and whatever. But your football is supposed to be, right, that safe place. It's going to be about football. Yeah, though I think there was a naked streaker. Remember I said that might be a good prop bet of a naked streaker running across the field? Yeah, I think there was somebody naked. But for the most part, football's about football. Yeah, maybe a player might, smack another person's ass, but for the most part, it's football. But the halftime show has gotten to be about boobies. It's gotten to be about butts. It's gotten to be about these cuss words. And so Bad Bunny is a talented artist, but was he right for Super Bowl? You could have Latino music. You could have Spanish. The music, I don't think Latino music has to be translated. I like Despacito. I think there's a lot. Bailamos, I really do think that the beauty is in the language. Italian songs. Nobody would ask Andre Bocelli to sing the song in English. All right, it's beautiful Latin, Ave Maria. Just we want to maintain that cultural genuineness. But apologize for my my English isn't too good, but sexual lyrics, that's and again, what I noticed at the Super Bowl party was people were kind of frustrated, going, well, what is he saying? Is he dissing America? Is he saying something anti-American? Is he saying something? What is he saying? And there was a lack of trust, because he had some anti-American sentiment before. So people were, so it didn't to me seem outwardly political, but there were undertones, and it did seem kind of sexual. And the NFL Super Bowl, it's supposed to be really entertaining. I mean, we're talking Michael Jackson caliber. We're talking about superstars. If you are the one that's going to be entertaining during the Super Bowl, it has got to be entertaining. And entertaining, you have to be aware of who your audience is. It's families and people who love football. It's America. And yes, Puerto Rico is a part of America, absolutely. And yes, we have a huge Hispanic population that we're proud to have. And but my issue is if you're going to be bringing up genitalia, if you're going to be bringing up sex and very explicit, that doesn't belong in the Super Bowl. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So insurance is up in the air now. We've come to the realization, which I knew back in 2009. I mean, and I think my listeners knew, but nobody else seemed to listen, where the Obamacare was not going to be sustainable. It was not going to provide the health insurance, the comprehensive health insurance, the good coverage, and the keeping your doctor that was needed. And I know many of you think I'm biased against the losing the doctor part, but I got to tell you, that really screwed people over when they lost their doctor. Obama promised you could keep your doctor. Because for me, my patients, who I had for 16 plus years, If they needed to see me on a Saturday, I opened up on a Saturday. I saw them on a Saturday. If they needed to see me Thanksgiving weekend, they saw me Thanksgiving weekend. If they needed a refill or they needed something done or they were exposed to something they thought their family was going to get sick, I knew them. I trusted them. We had a relationship. We had a rapport. I had a full workup on them. So I knew what their liver looked like if I had to make a decision of giving a medication that would be metabolized by the liver. And once deductibles skyrocketed and insurance was like, sorry, we can't pay you. See, insurance used to pay us, and patients would only have to pay $25 or $35, their copay. Then insurance companies like, deductible. Once they reach their $10,000 deductible, then we'll pay. So now the patients have to pay the $25 or the $45 or the $150 for the physical, and they're like, I can't. I've been laid off. It's a recession. I don't have that money. I had to give Obamacare insurance thousands of dollars a month. I don't have the money. Well, there was only so much I could do. I had to pay staff. If I, didn't take salary for months, and I was like, I got to go get a job. And I had to give my practice to another provider. I didn't sell the practice. People said, did you sell the practice and make money? No, not at all. You can't sell a practice that Obamacare ruins. I just handed over the keys to somebody else to make sure that somebody could take care of my patients. And they had a little bit more money so that they could cover the bad Obamacare reimbursements. Now, and from what I understand, they also had a more aggressive collections policy. So if a patient didn't pay their bill, they would get fired. They would, or there would be, I don't know, fees. For us, it was, all these people that didn't pay their bills. It just, we ended up not being able to collect. It was a mess. And so we have many people now who have an insurance, a doctor that doesn't know them. They're only using telemedicine. And now that they have something going wrong, they are frustrated. And I've seen these people frustrated on telemedicine. So we had somebody who looks like needs an MRI. So he calls up and he knows what he needs. These patients are educated. They're reading up on it. They're studying. Good for them. They're like, I need an MRI. And I go, I agree with you. I can't order that on telemedicine. Eventually we might be able to. But I'm like, your doctor's supposed to order this. Or they're supposed to refer you to a specialist. The specialist is supposed to get an MRI, do some physical therapy, an injection. I don't have a doctor. Well, if you don't have a doctor, then who's going to ask the insurance to pay for this? Who's going to? They're like, well, that's why we're going to you guys. You're telemedicine. And they're frustrated with us when there's a comprehensive care plan for a rotator cuff tear or a meniscal tear with the knee. Or, it's not just about ordering the test. And we've had some patients who got a test ordered. There was, I think, one telemedicine company that did the test, and it was a broken ankle. So they had the x-ray, they have a broken ankle, and they're like, where do I go? What do I do? And I go, well, the doctor that ordered the x-ray is now going to splint and cast you. Oh, I don't have a doctor. How did you get the x-ray? Well, I was able to get somebody online to order it. Like, you're walking around with a broken ankle. There's only days in which it gets too late for an orthopedist to be able to either realign it, with a cast or do surgery. And I had to end up sending him to urgent care because this isn't the way healthcare is supposed to be. You really need your primary care provider, and you need to be able to see your primary care provider. Patients, they say they can't get in with the primary care provider now for months. So they go through telemedicine, and thank God we have telemedicine because we're helping patients. But now you have these cases where people are really struggling. They have some pretty big medical issues. They're bleeding rectally. They're having abdominal bloating. They're having, something which sounds like they probably might eventually need surgery or biopsies. And when I say, what is your doctor doing? Has the doctor referred you to a specialist? Have they done a biopsy? I don't have a doctor. I don't have a doctor. Well, that's a problem. I had a lady call up yesterday, very upset. She's like, I want stool tests done. I want to know if I have a bacteria in my system. I go, I don't blame you. Did you talk to your doctor? My doctor didn't order it. You order it. I go, but I can't because I have to convince the insurance company why we're doing it. It sounds like you have a gallbladder issue. You need to get that. And Yeah, but my doctor won't order the test. When do you see your doctor again? I don't. I don't have a follow-up. I don't have a... And I was like, oh, no. This is not... I mean, with my patients, you followed up with me. If I diagnose, let's say, high blood pressure or diabetes, I saw you in 3 days. I saw you within a week later, then 2 weeks, then 4 weeks, then 6 months. And I would see you every 6 months. And I put you in the schedule. We would do follow-up reminders. And we had a lot of patients, but we were able to get everybody seen. I never had to turn down new patients. We were really organized. And maybe it's because I was also open on Saturdays. But I mean, we got stuff done. Apparently, there was a case in New York to mandate employer insurance to cover abortions. But I think the case got dropped. We're being told by OSV News that the state of New York is giving up on trying to enforce an insurance regulation that would have forced Catholic and other religious organizations to pay for abortions. There were 2 plaintiffs in a coalition of religious groups, and it was the case of Albany versus Harris. And I believe that the Attorney General said that the Catholic Charities of Brooklyn had created a self-insured plan for its employees that's not going to be subject to state regulations. And the Sisters of St. Mary, an Anglican order with a house in Greenwich, is in the process of moving to a facility out of state. And there were plaintiffs that, did not want to, like the charities of the Diocese of Ogdensburg and multiple of these Baptist Lutheran churches that I guess did not want to have to cover abortions within their insurance because it's against their religion. It's the death of a fetus. So the state requires most private insurance plans to cover abortion. 2017, the Department of Financial Services mandated that employers and their employee health insurance plans cover both abortifacients and surgical abortions. Now, abortion is legal in the state, but for insurance to cover it, if it's against your religion, what do you do? Yeah, and I think the system is just so flawed where, let's say you have an employee who really, really wants an abortion, but if their employer doesn't believe in that because they are pro-life, and I think the employer has a right to be pro-life, but what about the right of the patient when, she's like, well, but I need insurance and I need this covered. See, it's why we have the problem at the root is we need somebody else to pay for our medical issues. When we would pay for our own medical issues, you didn't have to ask permission. You didn't need somebody involved. You went and paid for your own issue. But things are too expensive now. And now we're requiring insurance to pay for stuff. And once we get other people involved, they now need to, they have a right to say, but I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to this. I don't want my... So we have to fix the system, and it's really beyond where, fixing Obamacare. So hopefully, a Trump care comes up or something that's better. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.